Namaste. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Anamkara meditation program. With all my heart, with all my love, I'm just delighted to welcome you to our program this evening and to be in your company. We're in the company of that universal field of consciousness. So, really, the aim of all the practices from the yogic tradition, the mystic traditions, the Buddhist traditions, is to go beyond the limitations of the ordinary mind that sees itself as bound to just this limited time and space of this body and mind. Because the truth, the reality is, we're in this unified field of consciousness, and we can actually access that. We can come to know that. And the mystics have repeatedly done the experiment over and over again across thousands of years and discovered the same truth. That unity consciousness is something that we have the innate capacity for. But we're so wedded to the mind that sees differences, that sees otherness, that sees separation. Because that's the nature of the mind. That's actually how it was built. It was built to do that. But we have access to this whole other field of consciousness. And that's why we gather in this unique setting in order to come to know that for our own selves and have that profound truth inform our lives day by day, moment by moment. So we have that highest intention. And that's what we start out with. That's what we start the program with. Invoking that awareness, in case the mind forgot during the day, that we're here to know the infinite as our own self. We're here to revel in the divine nature that is not only ourself, but all creation, all beings. That we can live from that place and not only be free of suffering ourselves, but help others to be free of suffering, to relieve the suffering of all beings. That we can attain the state and walk that sublime, extraordinary consciousness into this world, and a world that is on fire with ignorance. So it needs the cooling wisdom of the loving consciousness that is our essential nature. That's what we're doing here. That's what we have our commitment aimed at knowing, to know the infinite ourselves, to set ourselves and all beings free. This is the highest purpose of a human birth. And to realize that, we do the practices. We engage in various traditions. And, some people might be they love the Buddhist approach. Somebody else likes the yogic approach. Somebody likes the tantric Kashmir Shaivite approach. Somebody likes the Christian mystics. Somebody likes the Kabbalah and the great Jewish mystics. But when you go to where all the mystics point to, it's one. It's one. And that's what we're here to know. That's what we're here to explore. Not to get into arguments about who says it best, who knows it more, who's this. That's the stuff of the mind, seeing differences, because the mind, in its seeing differences, also gets into compare and contrast, higher and lower. Who's higher and lower? Am I higher or am I lower? It's all self-referential. It's all either-or thinking. These are the dynamics of mind that become clear as we sit with mind in meditation and look at it from a place of detached awareness, of witnessing, and see the vagaries of the mind and how they catch us and get us absorbed in that, identified with that, so that we then act on that very limited, distorted perspective of mind rather than the universal, all-embracing consciousness that is our innate nature, the truth of who we are. So we gather on these Thursday evenings and in courses and all the practices you do on your own so that we can deepen that direct experience and explore how to know that and come to rest in that. So thank you for coming and bringing the fullness of your being, that pure light of consciousness that is your essence, is with you at all times and all places. And so you bring that to this evening. And you bring the power of your commitment. You bring the power of your practices, both to this evening and to the world in need of that. So thank you for being ones doing that. Because there are many other things one could be engaged in that distract the mind. We could be watching FIFA, we could be watching this, we could be doing that, or some other thing. But to come and say, no, I want to sit with the infinite as my own self and discover there's nothing more sublime. There's nothing more joyous. There's nothing more rapturous. There's nothing more loving. To know that is to know the fullness of being, and the fullness of being human. So thank you for being ones doing that. But tonight I wanted to talk a bit about a question that's come to me a few times recently, and many times over many years, because it's a question that comes to everybody's mind at some point as they explore what's the nature of the divine, what's the nature of this world, how is this all working? And so people will ask, wait a minute, God, omniscient, omnipotent, the infinite one, why is there all this suffering? What's going on here? And the anguish that goes with that question of, wait a minute, if the infinite has that infinite power, how come it doesn't just get rid of all this? And that is a question that mystics of all traditions have dealt with across thousands of years. And so there are a variety of ways of approaching that, but you'll see that they all come back to one fundamental answer to it. But I wanted to share some writings that come from really one of my favorite collections of various writings, poems, and it's called Love Poems from God. And it's 12 sacred voices from the East and West. And Daniel Ladinsky is the translator and editor who compiled this. And there are Christian mystics, Sufi mystics, yogis, everything in there. And to really be able to sit with that is to be able to get a glimpse of what it is to see beyond the ordinary mind, to see through the eyes of ones who have gone beyond the ordinary mind, so that we get a hint at what we ourselves are capable of and what it will be like to see through those eyes. So this first piece is from the great 13th century Christian mystic Meister Eckhart. And Meister Eckhart wrote, and this is called To See as God Sees. It is your destiny to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels. How is this possible? How? Because divine love cannot defy its very self. Divine love will be eternally true to its own being, and its being is giving all it can as the perfect moment. So it's the very nature of the infinite to give the very vision and knowledge of what it is to be infinite. Remember, that's the root of who we are. That's what it means to come home to the truth of who we are. And the greatest gift God can give is his own experience, writes Meister Eckhart. Every object, every creature, every man, woman, and child has a soul, and it's the destiny of all to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is. To be as God is. It's the root of being. That's what we come to know. The fullness of being, the infinitude of being. Now, when we're identified with mind and body and its limitations, we take on the experience of being just the mind, just the body, just the narrative, just the experiences, just the traumas, just all the stuff this mind and body vehicle went through. But we haven't come to the substratum of all that. Pure being, the pure being that is the divine itself. And we innately have the capacity to know that when we shift out of being solely identified with mind and body. St. Thomas Aquinas, a great 13th century mystic, Christian mystic, he writes, this is called On Behalf of Love. Now, every truth, without exception, no matter who makes it, is from God. If a bird got accused of singing too early in the morning, if a lute began to magically play on its own in the square, and the enchanting sounds it made drove a pair of young lovers into a wild public display of passion, if this lute and bird then got called before the Inquisition, and their lives were literally at stake, could not God walk up and say before the court, "All acts of beauty are mine. All happen on the behalf of love"? And while God was there, testifying for our heart's desires, hopefully the judge would be astute enough to brave a question that could go, "Dear God, you say all acts of beauty are yours. Surely we can believe that. But what of all actions we see in this world? For is there any force in existence greater than the power of your omnipresent self, your omniscience, your omnipotent hand?" And God might have responded, "I like that question," adding, "Now, may I ask one as well?" And then God would say, "Have you ever been in a conversation when children entered the room and you then ceased speaking because your wisdom knew that they were not old enough to benefit, to understand? As exquisite as your world, most everyone in it is spiritually young. Spirituality is love. And love never wars with the minute, the day, oneself and others. Love would rather die than maim a limb, a wing. Dear, anything that divides man from man, earth from sky, light and dark, one religion from another. Oh, I best keep silent. I see a child has just entered the room. So, St. Thomas Aquinas, pointing to that truth lies beyond dogma. Immature spiritual souls, they cling to dogma. It gives them certainty, gives them a structure, gives them sense. But the wide open spaciousness, the infinitude of the loving embrace of the divine, well, that takes some understanding. Now, St. John of the Cross, a 16th century Christian mystic, he writes, "And why does not the church tell you? At last the time came for the bride to be with him, to be with God," the mystic seeking that divine union. "Nothing all the other brides had ever known could have prepared me. Only the beauty and light you cannot describe has a place in his house. I can touch God, yes, but not with anything I own, not with anything I can identify with, not with anything that knows me. Purity. Have you ever contemplated that word? I once beheld the root of the immaculate, and it drew me into itself. I looked at all through his eyes. Why does not my sacred church tell you God only sees himself? God only sees himself. The divine, there is no other. Otherness, oh, that comes into being with identification with the limited mind. Then, once we've made others, made that separation, that's where then all the conflict, discord arises from. It comes from not seeing all there is the divine. All there is is one's own self. All there is the one being, dancing as all these magnificent forms. So if we want to be free of conflict, if we want to be free of all that is born of the mind, then we have to take up God's invitation to enter in to that direct knowing of the sublime as our own being, our own self. And that's what countless traditions point to in the tantric tradition of Kashmir Shaivism. All this is the unfolding of the infinite as your own self, including having created an instrument for seeing differences. Right? So the infinite isn't bound to seeing only unity, but in order to see diversity, separation, to know that, it created the instrument for knowing that. Oh, that instrument, it's all living beings that inform the infinite of what it is to be, just a little thing, just a big thing, just this thing, just that thing, all these things. It is knowing because it is every one of those. When we shift states, because it requires a shift in state, the state of the ordinary mind, the waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state, these are all states of ordinary mind. We're all familiar with them. And what pervades them all is separation, is I'm just this little being. In the waking state, I'm aware of all kinds of things. When I'm in the dream state, the dream ego mind, it can do different things than the waking state ego mind, which is very much identified with a physical body and has to be bound by the laws of physics. In the dream state, the yogis describe that as that's the subtle body. The subtle body is freer from the laws of physics. You can go back in time, forward in time. You can have different forms. All kinds of things can happen in dreams. But there's always a sense of limited eye awareness. That's the ego mind. Even in the depths of deep sleep, which the yogis would call the continuous awareness of nothingness, but it's the awareness of a nothingness that is still limited in time and space. So even the subtle seed of limited eye awareness is in the deep sleep state. Well, it turns out the yogis, as they were mapping these states, from having been able to go beyond them and then view them, and this is something each and every one of us can do. This is something that happens in meditation. I've experienced it countless times. You start to witness. You can see what's going on here and now, even while being aware of the infinitude of one's being. You can watch dreams unfolding, even by being aware of one's fullness of being. You can even watch the body in deep sleep state and the mind in deep sleep from the vantage point of pure awareness. Now, purity, as the Christian mystic was talking about, purity, what does that mean here? Purity means untainted by limited identification, untainted by ignorance, untainted by avidya, the root ignorance that creates all suffering. That root ignorance is, I'm not the infinite, I am just the finite self. I'm not the boundless one whose boundless consciousness, boundless love, boundless compassion, boundless wisdom, unshakable peace and equanimity is eternal. No, I'm the ephemeral. I'm this little mind, this little body, the roles I play, the things that I do, all that. That is what is meant by impurity and ignorance. Purity, that's what's being referred to. St. John said, the immaculate. Immaculate, meaning untainted by any of those obscurations, those wrong understandings, those wrong concepts, those wrong identifications. That's what our sadhana practices free us from. Whether it's doing a contemplative practice, in other words, listening to these kinds of things, thinking about them, helping the mind shift its perspective, doing meditative practices, doing selfless service practices. These are all aimed at freeing our consciousness from the confines of a limited mind and body so we can know the infinite as our own self, our own being, nature. And so in the Shaivite tradition, they're saying, yes, this is all the unfolding, in the same as other mystic traditions, of that one, the power of the one to create both diversity even while unity is unbroken, to be able to view unity and diversity simultaneously. That's what we're capable of. That's what would then be called the highest states of what a human can attain. Sahaja samadhi, living samadhi. Not just eyes closed, lost in samadhi, or eyes open, lost in delusion. No, that state of consciousness subsumes it all, transcends it all, transforms it all. That's what we're invited to know, to be true knowers. That's our birthright. So the practices and all our intentions are aimed at coming to know the fullness of that we then live that into the world, into our relationships, into our work, into our everyday lives. Because there's nothing that's not sacred. There's nothing that's not divine. There's no time when the infinite, the divine, isn't fully present. There's no time when your fully enlightened mind isn't present. There's no time when that state of unbounded, exalted meditation isn't present. What we typically call meditation is the mind trying to access it. So we talk about meditation practices. Who's practicing? The limited mind. The infinite's already in that state. So the mind is saying, oh, but I'm so easily caught by content, thoughts, feelings, reactions, memories, all the stuff of mind, that I have to try and calm it down. Oh, I'm very distracted if the body's moving or in pain, so I want to calm the body down. It's really just to get some of the distractions out of the way so our awareness can reclaim what's already fully present, the infinitude of being, to know that. Then the more we inhabit that, then the vagaries of the mind, the movements of the mind, we just watch them. And the wisdom that flows so naturally from your infinitude of being, the wisdom that's flowing from the divine, however we might call it, God is God, Tara, Shiva, Shakti, Kali, whatever the name we want to call it, because it's beyond all names, it's beyond all forms. We don't want to get caught like the child walking into the room and suddenly you can't talk about things because they're not going to understand, because our highest nature understands this. It knows this. It knows we're beyond all that. We don't have to be caught up in any particular dogma or limiting belief system. We can come to know the infinite, inhabit that, walk that into the world, become true knowers. And that's what we're doing. And then we're seeing, it's all the unfolding, and we could call it the unfolding of grace. We could call it the unfolding of Shakti. We could say it's the unfolding of consciousness, the infinite power of consciousness to create infinite variety of forms, to sustain that infinitude of forms, to dissolve them, to conceal one's infinite nature and reveal one's infinite nature. These are the powers that are inherent to your own highest self. They also operate in limited forms because the mind is a limited reflection of that. So the mind has the limited ability to create. It has the limited ability to sustain what it's created. It has the limited ability to dissolve them, get rid of them. It has the limited ability to forget, tuck it away in a memory. It has the limited ability to reveal it again by bringing it back to awareness. We see the same functions of the infinite in the finite, because the finite is a form of the infinite, bound in time and space, but still reflecting aspects of its boundless nature. And by having this human birth, we have the innate capacity to move beyond the limitations of mind and body and come to know that infinitude of being, to live that rapturous, joyous, ecstatic experience that is uncaused. Uncaused. This is a real tripping point for the mind. The The mind says, wait a minute, you want me to be happy? There's all this suffering going on. How can I be happy when there's all this suffering going on? Well, because that's not the rapturous joy of the infinite. The rapturous joy of the infinite is uncaused. It's just its nature. Its nature is love. It doesn't love because you're lovable. It loves because you are it. It loves itself and all that is. These are uncaused qualities. So even when Buddha talked about the boundless, the four boundless natures, the immeasurable natures of that consciousness, these were not caused. The mind only knows caused consequences. I'm at peace because. I'm happy because. I'm sad because. I'm angry because. I'm agitated because. I can't know peace unless all the things that cause me agitation are gone. That's not the peace that is of the infinite. That is just a mind state, and as ephemeral and fluctuating as everything else about the mind. So if we want to know unshakable peace, if we want to know that equanimity, we have to come to know the eternal as our own self. We have to know what Meister Eckhart was saying, to know the very being nature of God as the essence of our own being. Then we know that peace that surpasses all understanding. Then we know these unqualified dimensions of the infinite, that the mind in its own cannot reproduce, cannot know. We have to leave behind the mind and go into consciousness itself. It is self-aware. It is self-luminous. It does not rely on the quality of mind that thinks it's conscious. The mind does not illuminate your infinite nature. It does not come to know through understanding. It comes to know by being erased. And then in the spaciousness, the purity of no self, no being, no other, everything stands illuminated. That's why we enter that peace and that stillness over and over and over. So it's like dipping a cloth in dye until everything about our being, everything about our nature is drenched in the knowing, the pure, direct knowing that is our birthright, that we are innately capable of. So that's what we want to know. That was St. John of the Cross's lament of saying, why does not the church say that when God looks at the world, all he sees is himself? All he sees is his loved creation. All he sees is his beloved self. No sinners, no saints, nothing separate, no other. That is all mind-born. That is the great blasphemy. That is the great sin. To mistake the part for the whole. To think that all this is this mind and body. And not know the infinitude of being that embraces all as itself. That's what the great mystics of all traditions point to knowing. That's what we're capable of. And that's why it outshines anything, any of the little things that make up this world. Yes, we can still know the little pleasures and the little vagaries, and the mind is still going to have its ups and downs, but so much of its agitation is erased because now it has come to rest in genuine knowing. And knowing that fullness, it's not seeking for fullness where it will never be found. It's not seeking for peace where it will never be known. It's not seeking for boundless love from finite beings. We come to know that directly within the heart of our own self. And that's why we do the practices. That's why we chant mantra as a throb of that consciousness in sound form. That's why mantra is used, and sacred sound is used across so many different traditions, because it helps to attune mind and body to the throb, the vibration of the infinite. It helps to attune everything about us. So sacred sound can penetrate right down to the marrow of our bones. so that everything can come into that same equivalent vibratory form that is the infinite, and that we can have all thoughts, which are other little vibrations. They're other little shaktis, but they can all dissolve in that universal form of Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, a throb of the infinite, given by the infinite to serve the finite as a way to come back, to dissolve the separation, to come back to the unity that was never broken. That's why it's called an illusion, because the mind is identified with its limitations, but the infinite never got caught by that. It pervades everything about you. It sees everything about you, your own self, your own divine presence, with you at all times and all places. It is always ready to reveal to you the truth of who you are. Oh, if you can let go of being identified with the mind, the body, all the things you were told you were, all the things you've told yourself you are or should be. Oh, all that's got to go. All that's got to go. Then what's left? That purity, that immaculate one. That's the truth of being. That you can know at all times and all places. That can then inform the ordinary mind. So the mind and body can become transparent to that light of pure consciousness. So that's what radiates from you. That's what you speak from. That's why your words then reflect that highest reality and not anger, irritability, longing for something you can't have, all that other stuff that the mind produces. Oh, let our minds, our body, our speech, our thoughts, all be in service of the one that is the truth of who we are. That's what it means to be truly free, radically free. So now we're going to chant the sublime mantra, the Shakti mantra of Om Namah Shivaya for a few minutes. Om Namah Shivaya. It means I bow to the auspicious one. Who's the auspicious one? Oh, that's your very nature. And who's bowing? That's the mind. Learning to bow. Go, oh, wait a minute. The highest, that's what I want to know. Let me bow to that one, and let that one's light of grace suffuse and transform. Let me then live to serve and know that in the moment. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om. That's all there is. Om Namah Shivaya is throbbing already within you. The mantras were heard. Mantras are heard. Why? Because they're arising from consciousness itself. Om is throbbing within your subtle body through the Sushumna Nadi. Namah Shivaya, the mantra, is throbbing within. So the ancient sages and rishis, they in the stillness of meditation heard that. But to this day, we continue to hear that. You dissolve into meditation, you start to hear the spontaneous arising of sacred sounds called nada, sacred sounds of mantras just arising, throbbing. So we're helping attune the mind to what is already present so we can start to perceive what's already there. So yes, it starts out sounding like, oh, I'm chanting. Well, yeah, because that's helping to tune up the mind, tune up your consciousness, tune up your body to what already is. Then, effortlessly, rest in that. The throb constantly arising. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, until it dissolves. Then there's just the awareness of the infinite, because the root of mantra is pure consciousness of I am. I am the infinite. I am the one. I am the God. I am Goddess. I am all it is. Aham. I am. That's the root of mantra. We come into that. When the sound form starts to dissolve, we can dissolve into that consciousness itself and revel in that, sit in that, bathe in that, drown in that. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. That's why we're here. That's what we've come to know. That's what this life is about. So we will chant now and dissolve in Om Namah Shivaya. 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 Now I'm just resting. resting in the stillness. The mind moves, let it move with Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. The awareness of I am that, am all that is, all that isn't, all that's beyond. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Rest in that. Om Namah Shivaya. 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 So we end with this prayer, and may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. So, understanding the mystery of creation, the mystery of suffering. These are at the heart of sadhana, both through being able to enter the states where we can know that directly, as well as coming to understand the truths that have been passed on by great traditions that help to inform the mind as they contemplate them, sort of prepare the ground for that profound knowing, so that we can become knowers ourselves, so we can get out of the mind that is lost in this maze of otherness, separation, pain, and suffering. So that's where all the practices are aimed at, taking us beyond that. It's called warding off chaos. Poor dear mind, what you've been through, little wonder you cling to power you don't have. You cling to the illusion of power you created to ward off chaos and her minions appearing to threaten your annihilation. You and everyone else have pursued this self-preservation scheme from the moment you emerged from the womb. It is so completely woven into every aspect of your tiny, tattered existence. You never perceive its pervasive distortions, twisting all that is. Avoiding the reality of your impotence, you cherish your ideas, dreams, fleeting feelings, even your delusions, which you mistake for reality, defending these as if they were life itself, as if you would die if they were challenged. You cling to your power to create a comfortable substitute for the reality you find so threatening, unconscious of how disempowering that clinging truly is. You were born of unknowing, parented by unknowers, educated by unknowers, and you will die an unknower, as unconscious as all of them, unless you choose knowing, choose consciousness, choose reality, no matter how uncomfortable it initially may seem to one looking through the eyes of ignorance and delusion. Seek the company of the wise, true knowers who will take you to the wellspring of the eternal, which will wash away all unknowing and fill you with the truth of your never diminished, loving, rapturous, all-embracing infinitude of being. Reclaim the greatest power of all powers, the power to love all as yourself. That's the power. That's the vision of the divine. That's seeing through the eyes of the divine, that there is no other, that all God sees is himself and loves all as its own self, perfect, pure, unbroken. That's what we're invited to know. That's what having the merit of a human birth allows us to pursue, that knowing and be able to attain that. So make use of every moment, every day, every time is a practice, a time for remembering the truth of who we are. Suffuse every moment with Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, with that awareness of I am that. Come home to that moment by moment. Then we can live in radical freedom. Then we can transform the suffering in the world. Then we can live in harmony with all, because all are our own self. This is the exalted vision of mystics across traditions. This is the birthright, your birthright, to know that. That's why Meister Eckhart was talking about it. It's the destiny of every soul. You have that innate capacity. Pursue it relentlessly. To revel in that. That's freedom. So, thank you for being ones doing that, endeavoring to know that in your own ways, in your own life, through your own practices. Thank you for coming this evening and sharing the power of your presence and your practices. And thank you for being ones walking these highest truths into the world, into a world that wants to be confounded by differences and setting others against one another for profit. It's people who profit off of that kind of discord. So we want to cut through all of that. We want to transform that. We want to put out the vision of the highest and live that in our everyday actions. So thank you for being ones doing that. And thank you for supporting Anam Cara in the ways that you do. Sharing our e-newsletters, sharing our videos, making donations, engaging in what we're offering. We just want to be able to pass on the highest so everybody can know it and revel in it for themselves. So thank you for supporting us in doing that. And we'll be back together in 2 weeks, so I look forward to seeing you then. Jai Ma.